Okay, good morning. My name is Lynn Markey. I'm CEO of Xtremedy Medical, and we're on a mission to disrupt the surgical infection market by preventing reinfections. What if I told you one of the most common surgeries is simply not effective? Infected wounds are a reality for millions of patients, but they currently require multiple surgeries. Nearly 1 in 3 patients will have a reinfection, and this is a leading cause of amputation when the infection can't be controlled. These ineffective treatments lead to months of pain, suffering, immobility, and social isolation for patients. Let me tell you about the problem of deep tissue infections. A deep tissue infection can occur from open wounds, from trauma and surgery, and involve deep muscle and bone tissues. When treating these infections, we can think about it like this. An oncologist can't leave tumor cells behind in the tissue margins, and it's the exact same for bacteria. If all the infection isn't removed, it will regrow and the patient requires further surgery. Unfortunately, right now, there are no effective tools available to the surgeon to clear out these wound margins, and the best guidance they have is cut until it bleeds. Xtremedy have developed the BioBlade device to address this gap. This is the first surgical device to pass electric currents through the wound margins at the end of surgery to treat any residual infection remaining. This technology uses high voltage, short electrical bursts to disrupt and kill bacteria within the wound, and this has already been proven effective at sterilizing food produce in the food sterilization industry. What's more, this technology is clinically safe, and it's considered the next generation for cardiovascular and cancer treatments. BioBlade is unique in that it can overcome the major challenge with infection by getting sufficient antibiotics to the infection site. Our patented technology can help millions of patients every year by preventing avoidable repeat surgeries. We will win market share by overcoming the major limitation with current treatments, and that's reinfection. We have shown on our advanced tissue models that there is little or no regrowth 1 full day after treatment with BioBlade, which you can see in this graph is simply not the case for current treatments. This graph is on a log scale in order to show you a reduction from billions of cells to just thousands. We will initially target diabetic foot patients with moderate to severe infections that undergo 600,000 procedures every year, and will subsequently expand into the wider chronic wound, trauma, and surgical site infection markets with a total market opportunity of €5 billion. The good news for patients is reimbursement codes are already available in the US for immediate rollout of the technology. The device has 2 parts, a generator, which will retail at €35,000, and a disposable device head priced at €2,000, and this is in line with current competitor pricing. We expect gross profit margins of between 80 and 90%. Currently, there are no devices on the market that both kill bacteria and improve antibiotic uptake, and Xtremedy will be the first technology to attack infections on both these fronts, thereby preventing infection rebound, the biggest problem with current therapies. Over the past number of years, M&A activity in this space has been dominated by skin substitute products and biologics. However, feedback from clinicians is our technology is far more valuable as it prevents removal of tissue in the first place. Acquisitions in this space typically range from $400 to $500 million, and there are a number of strategics interested in this space, including advanced wound care companies as well as traditional surgical device companies. Given there are no surgical devices capable of effectively removing infections in surgery, we would expect an exit of between 150 and 300 million within 5 years. We have spent the past 4 years developing this technology to maximize the efficacy against infection. We're now ready to bring this technology to patients in a first-in-human study and are raising a seed round to fund this. We'll subsequently raise a Series A to complete a pivotal clinical study and FDA approval by 2028 via the de novo pathway. The core team is made up of Camille O'Malley as CTO and myself as CEO, and we have the technical and commercial backgrounds to bring this technology to patients. We're also supported by expert clinical and commercial advisors and have worked with leading partners in this space to align our regulatory, reimbursement, and IP strategies. So join us on this mission to heal patients. With Xtremedy, it's time to get these patients back on their feet faster. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn, for your presentation. I'm curious about the animal trials. Could you provide detail on the model you used and the results? I mean, what were you able to prove in those trials?
For sure. So with infection, with diabetic foot infection, there isn't a good animal trial that demonstrates efficacy. So what we've done is we've split out safety and efficacy. So with our efficacy studies, what we do is we take ex vivo tissue and we incubate the infection on that tissue, and then we treat it with our device. And this is essentially the worst case scenario because there's no immune system, there's no antibiotics. And so any efficacy that's seen, that's just down to the device. And then the purpose of the animal study that was on an ovine model that we carried out in IMM in Paris. So there was 3 animals, and we looked at deploying the technology safely and effectively into the animal, and that was a successful study. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, thank you.
So can you tell something about the trial you want to do with when you made an investment?
Sure. The first in human study in the seed round, is it?
Yes.
Sure. So this is an infection device. So it's looking at removal of infection in surgery. When we spoke to clinicians and surgeons, they say this is the cornerstone of infection treatment. If you don't remove the infection at this point, subsequent antibiotics and other therapies will have very little chance because there's what's known as a biofilm in the wound, and it's very difficult to treat that. So what we look at in our clinical data points is removal of that infection. So we look at swabs pre-surgery, post-surgery, immediately post-surgery, and then up to a week after surgery, to look at, is the initial pathogen that was there in the wound at the start of surgery, has that been eradicated? Has the device successfully removed the infection that was present in surgery? So that will be the primary data point or the primary endpoint that we're looking at. And then the secondary endpoints will follow patients up to 3 months to look at, when we remove this infection, what's the rate of wound healing? And also the number of surgeries these patients have and the length of stay in hospital as well.
And what kind of surgeries are you targeting?
It's called a debridement surgery. So it's a very common surgery for treating infection, and its purpose is to remove any dead and infected tissue. So it's very common for infected wounds, for trauma, and also for surgical site infections. The initial patients that we're targeting are diabetic foot patients that have moderate to severe infections. They have a formal surgical procedure where they're in hospital for 8 to 18 days. And currently they're having about 2 to 3 procedures to try and control this infection.
Okay. Thank you.